Being a good neighbour and caring for a friend lies at the heart of any good community. But beyond this, the best communities have developed a social infrastructure whose clubs, groups and societies provide that cultural currency which enriches the quality of life. These exist only through the time and efforts of the teams of people who volunteer to run them, and, through organisation, spread the benefits of these activities to far wider groups of people. These, mostly unofficial organisations, span the age groups from infancy to seniors, and areas as diverse as sport, craft, twinning, cycling and walking, religion, charitable work, theatrical and musical productions, and many village-wide events. Browsing through our superbly produced village magazine reveals the richness of activity we are fortunate enough to have available in Sampford Peverell, thanks to our volunteers. Malcolm and Susan Thirsk's film The Sampford Peverell Volunteers, Dedication to the Community, made this point very strongly.
A long time ago, this was just a farming village where almost everyone's job had something to do with the local agriculture. Nowadays, people work in a wide variety of trades and professions and travel widely to their work, to places such as Exeter and even as far as Bristol and London. Everyone has a busy lifestyle, but they still find time to join in a wide variety of voluntary activities, over 30 at the last count. Every March, the Parish Council holds a special meeting in support of all of the group activities here in the village. Every group leader is invited to give a thumbnail sketch of what they've been doing over the past year, which helps to promote interest and therefore recruiting new members to the groups. Every year there's a big turnout, and it's really interesting to hear how much work our volunteers have been doing and what the achievement is. It's quite amazing, really. Anyway, the meeting's just started, so let's go in and see what's going on.
A prescription to be collected from the local surgery. Can get this arranged by one of our members who will collect and deliver. We've got passes now to enable us to park at the local hospitals, including the Royal Devon and Exeter, Musgrove, as well as Tiverton. So when taking either patients or family to visit patients who are in the hospital, we can park without any cost. Needless to say, there's a slight charge for it.
A discussion early in 2003 noted that there was one area not represented, our own local history. Though several individuals had previously amassed their own private archives. Thus, in October 2003, a new volunteer-led group, the Sampford Peverell Society, was formed by 4 residents, Peter Bowers, Richard Alford, Robin Hazelton and Christine Mason, who had developed a keen interest in researching the history of their adopted village, and for some, of their own historic houses. In the best traditions, a committee was formed. Peter given the helm, members invited to join, and decisions made on its range of objectives. Funding was sought and achieved from Heritage Lottery Fund sources to support these stated objectives and provide technical equipment for recording and presentation, to run events and support publications. As with many historic communities, distant social history is only preserved in those scant records which have avoided the accidents of life, neglect and conflict. Much of the village's physical structure has been reworked or lost to us as people learned the art of recycling long before our puny efforts. We had a castle, we had royal residence, we had a large house which came and went as the St. Boniface Boys' Home. We acquired a canal through the centre of the village. That was probably quite controversial in its day. How did the village become a borough temporarily? Why was it built here? How did it earn its living over the centuries? So many questions suggested themselves and vied for priority. The group having the greatest potential workload was social history, as its remit included the gleaning of information from original sources, an immense task of researching the parish registers and other documents in the Devon Records Office, now the Heritage Centre, various documents held in neighbouring records offices, newspaper archives and libraries, etc., looking for any references to Sampford Peverell or its denizens. The work of earlier local historians was brought into this. A trawl for old photographs and documents within the village brought further information. Photographing, transcribing, collating and publishing this material continues to this day. The Society's website is public and well worth a look at periodically as new material is published. The publications team's first product was a book on the village, its churches and rectories, edited by Charles Scott Fox. The discovery of a typescript written in later life by a village primary school pupil, Dennis Clewitt, which covered a period before and during the First World War, led to the idea for the Society's next publication. A specialist team researched references, checked facts, visited locations, took photographs, and commissioned illustrations to bring it to life. The book was published in November 2007 to mark the centenary of Dennis's birth. Another team of 7 was assembled in 2008 to research the history of schools in the village. Much hard work has been done, and this book is nearing completion. A further book about the St. Boniface Boys' Home has been researched and is in the pipeline. A map of the village, created by the late Richard Alford, has pride of place outside the Memorial Hall, and was followed by information boards which were researched and designed by Society members and may be seen in the recreation ground, by the bridge, and in Higher Town, and throw light onto local places and events. A programme of reminiscence interviews with elderly village residents, some sadly no longer with us, has preserved their vital recollections of the early decades of the last century. Some were filmed by Malcolm and Susan. Here are a few reminders. About the house you were born in and your earlier life there?
I don't remember anything when I lived there, but of course it was quite near the house where I lived anyway, so I saw it and always thought, oh, that's where I was born. And as someone once said, they've forgotten to put a plaque on the wall.
Oh, perhaps we ought to rectify that at some stage in the future. But the house, the cottage you were born in and lived in, is no longer there, I think.
No, it was called Coombe Cottage, and it was knocked down when Blackdown View was built.
Oh, so that was up in High Town.
And the passage went through the house, which would have been a little footpath in line with the footpath that goes out onto Turnback.
Oh, yes.
It was a straight path then, you see.
Childhood in that part of the village?
Well, no, because I think I was a baby when we moved from there.
Oh,
I moved further up Higher Town.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Into a house that is there now or not?
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, so which house was that?
Well, first I lived in the house just below where Mr. Bone used to live, Rockview.
Oh, yes.
Below there was a cottage. We lived in there. And then we went across the road to the house where Mr. Adams lives now.
Oh, so you've tried out quite a lot of
yes, that's right. And then we ended up in Change Road after that.
And then you were in Change Road as well?
Yeah, this is what happens when you rent houses.
Of course, yes, because people didn't have...
landlords want their house back or something, you know.
That's right. I suppose people in the village didn't own their houses to quite the extent that they do today. So a lot of people...
Well, no. Now, when you could have a house rented then, well, you can't now. So, I mean, you just have to buy one, whether they want to or not, poor things.
I'm at the Tiverton home of Ken Wright. Ken was born in Sampford, Peverell, and moved to Tiverton about 10 years ago, but he is still chairman of the Sampford Peverell Senior Citizens.
I was born in Sampford Peverell at a village cottage known as Rose Cottage. My father was employed on the farm, the Barton farm, which time there were 15 employees, because in those days it was mostly horses that had to do all the work. So my first recollection of being there was a very young age, really. What did you do?
I worked for a farmer in the hamlet of Ashford. That was a Saturday morning job. Meant cleaning out pigs, cows, any dirty work he wanted done, I did it, for which I got paid £0.50, good breakfast, and all the cider I could drink.
Sometime as war progressed, you must have got a full-time job as well. What did you do then?
Yes, I left school in 41 at the age of 14, and then I worked for the village baker, who was Mr. Thomas. He ran the bakery with his sister, Miss Thomas, and my elder brother, who worked for them full-time right from the time we came to the village in 1933.
An early open day, held in the Memorial Hall, thanked long-term resident, physician and historian Dr. John Graves Morris for his contributions to the Society.
Okay, right, I'll hold it close to my mouth. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to Sampford Peverell Society's Open Day. I've got great pleasure to have as our guests today Dr. John and Mary Graves Morris. Very grateful for them to come and officiate at the opening.
We recorded reminiscence interviews with some of our younger members.
Is
Megan.
Megan.
Karen.
Karen. And how old are you?
I'm 8.
And I'm 9 years old, and I go to Sampford Peverell Primary School.
I go to school at Uffcombe. I went to the primary school in the village.
And we did not neglect the recollections of ancient notables who happened to be passing by that day.
Lady Margaret Beaufort, and I lived in the 15th century. I was born in 1433, and I came to be connected with Sampford Peverell when I inherited some of the estate of my late father, John, Duke of Somerset.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. George William Ireland, and I am the rector of this parish.
I am Sir Hugh Peverell, Lord of the Manor and Knight of the King. I came back from the Crusades and I started to restore part of the church, with thanks, if you like, to my Lord who had saved me from the evils of the Saracens in 1270.
The mainstay of most historical-based societies is a presentation by an expert speaker. And we've been privileged to have had many general meetings enhanced by these kind people willing to venture far from the beaten track to join us. Also, we're fortunate to have members within the Society with experience in family history who were able to share some of their expertise at a workshop. The Buildings and Industry Group sought to record the physical infrastructure of the village, past and present, its houses, working buildings, and businesses and leisure facilities. The group carried out visits to some old properties, including East Pit.
Either a pottery, like
yes.
the main.
There's been some
I'd say that was a wind brace or something coming in here, where your original roof was coming over.
Yeah.
You'd have some bracing between this rafter, if you like, and the next rafter.
Right.
It's called wind bracing because it just gives that extra bit of stability.
Okay.
So, I don't know, I think it says you've got some still.
They did mention wind braces.
Yeah.
Would you have to go up into the roof?
Yeah, it's got a nice big...
Several holes.
These holes all the way along, with something wanting to come out in this direction.
Yes.
So they're very neatly spaced.
They are, aren't
very
they? Yes,
regular.
they are.
It's been blocked up, obviously.
It's got brand new
blocks.
Yes.
Concrete blocks. But in the posh end, perhaps this was always the hall. Was built in stone, and then they...
The group photographed the houses along many streets and did documentary research through business directories and censuses to find out what occupations our predecessors had. Village resident, builder, blacksmith and renovator extraordinaire Andy Brown invited those interested to view his property, the old watermill by the Barton.
This is called Phil's now. So the thoughts are that this is pre-1845, obviously, and I think this building, well, I mean, you can see there, this is not tied into
The mill was powered by water from the Great Pond. This was drained long ago, and only its rim remains visible. With the departure of its leader, Richard Morgan, to pastures new, the group was incorporated into the social history section, and its work has recently been restarted by a team dedicated to researching specific business premises and their owners. These include shops, pubs and enterprises such as builders, blacksmiths and plumbers. It is hoped that a further book will eventually result. The archaeology group started enthusiastically with a large group of willing members. An early event was to verify a presumed ancient lane connecting Bow Hill with the main track into the village, currently from Station Road up to the canal slipway, by means of the technique of hedge dating. A botanical expert, Jeremy Eissens, kindly led a party to identify tree and shrub species. A theory suggests that the number of separate species in a given length of hedge relates to the hedge's age, and by inference, the lane's age. The findings were consistent with documentation indicating that Bow Hill Manor predates the Norman conquest, and this could well have been an access lane. Much excitement was generated by visitors from members of Wessex archaeology, when we spent several happy days, the weather was better then, digging test pits 1 metre square and deep in members' gardens, looking for finds. Another project into which we put great effort was the abandoned farm settlement at Lee Ditch, at the northern boundary of the parish. The last occupant, a lone farmer, sadly took his own life there in the early part of the last century. And there is still a quiet melancholy about the site. Returning in 2005, the group spent time clearing the undergrowth and then, with the help of Exeter archaeology, excavated the floor of the ruined building.
We have our first aid pack.
That's virtually the northern edge, so it's miles this way. It's got water in it.
Oh, I see. Yes, it's a jacket.
How long does it take to come to a port?
The archaeological technique of field walking was practised, courtesy of Ron Venner of Batten's Farm. Put simply, people walk slowly back and forth across a 20-metre square of a ploughed field, often in winter, looking for any item, however small, which appears man-made. All finds are picked up and placed in a bag, labelled for that square of the grid into which the field has been divided. Later, items are washed and sent for expert evaluation.
A nail brush and toothbrushes, right? And you need your finds. And you remember, so you, whatever you do, that stays with your finds. Then tepid water. I mean, this ought to be Barbara, actually. She's done far more of this than I have.
Bit of glazing on that one.
Yeah. Yes, there is a bit of glaze on there, isn't there? Yeah. That's one.
A couple of years ago, significant evidence of Roman occupation was found on Batten's Farm by metal detectorist John Hill. Several further field walks were then organised by Tiverton Archaeology Group leader Isabel Richardson, with many Sampford Peverell residents joining in. It produced a great many finds. The results were sufficiently interesting to the county archaeologist for a professional geophysical survey to be undertaken. Similar equipment is seen here in use at surveys we carried out at Sampford Ball and East Hole Lake in 2005 with Exeter archaeology staff.
Okay, this is a gradiometer, and what it does is it measures the levels of magnetic disturbance in the ground. Okay, and it has these two sensors here, and these are the two sensors that take the measurements, and they measure the level of disturbance. And they take measurements a metre apart, and then for every metre they take 4 readings. Okay. And it sort of, what it does is it grades the different levels of disturbance. So when we're looking at the image that we get at the end when we download the data, any dark lines show a real high level of disturbance, and any light areas show a very low level of disturbance. And that's why it's particularly good at picking up things like ditches and pits. And because it's very sensitive to any changes in magnetism, it will pick up any metal objects in the ground as well. So we always, especially on a ploughed field like this, we always find areas of quite a lot of metal in the ground.
As a result of the survey evaluation, we now believe that there was a significant Roman industrial site on our own doorstep. Aside from the quantity of Roman coinage dropped over the centuries, we have parts of building materials, slate, tile, crude flooring blocks called tesserae, and much iron waste. The shadows of the former smelting sites were still discernible by the various geophysical sensors.
So that's just telling you in a bit more detail about the geophysical results. The pits could be very interesting because this lack of pottery is very odd. I mean, what were these people using? Was it wood or leather? Maybe. Don't know. But you've got 44 results, 17 that show quite strongly, and they may be craft or industrial production. It can be buildings, that sort of thing. And then you've got linear features such as field boundaries.
The field walking and these 2 geophysical surveys provided an insight into the world of the archaeologist for us amateurs, and showed that much can be deduced without lifting a trowel. The final group, natural history, is perhaps not so much historical as occasionally hysterical. The accent is on members pooling whatever natural history knowledge they have to record sightings, do surveys, and to enjoy the local natural environment. Occasional visits to sites and reserves such as the Exe Estuary broaden our horizons and reflect our belief in the importance of these wildlife havens. The canal, with its wide variety of wildlife, provides a ready source of interest. Noting the changing presence of species, their abundance and timing of arrival from year to year helps to document this ephemeral world. The construction skills of Dave Wright enabled us to have our own mink raft, which is intended to detect the presence of mink. This has been moored at Batten's Bridge for many a year. The spraint of otters is frequently seen under the bridge, but few of us have been privileged to see these elusive creatures. But they are about, as Peter's fish would tell you had they survived. Each winter, the team locates, with some difficulty, the bird boxes deployed by the Society along the canal, checks for their usage, cleans and replaces them. Occasionally, there's a surprise discovery that a mouse has declared one a des res. Seasonal displays, such as the dramatic gatherings and evening roosting of starlings, can also be found very close to home if you look carefully. These scenes are from January 2012. The use of infrared camera traps and night vision equipment reveals some nocturnal visitors to our gardens. Leaflets describing walks within the parish have been prepared by this group and are on sale locally. One member, David Disney, has set a very good example in creating a small wetland habitat in the field adjoining the permissive path which crosses his land. The Spratford Brook is close by. It's always a pleasure to pass this way on a fine day. Who knows what you may see among the reeds? In 2010, Peter's sharp eyes had noticed the abundance of meadowland insect species that were colonising the embankment of the link road just near the village. A film documenting that season showed the importance such wild places can have.
Roads are built for our benefit, but with minimal, sympathetic management, their margins can evolve into local ecosystems, favoured by plant and insect species intolerant of modern agriculture.
Here you will find ragged robin, field scabious, common centaury, yarrow, pyramidal orchids, ox-eye daisies and knapweed in abundance. One such day-flying moth, which could easily be mistaken for a butterfly, is the five-spot burnet moth. In 2010, the number present was estimated to be in the thousands during its peak period of June. In Sampford Peverell churchyard, a wildlife area has recently been created, and this has been quickly colonised by ringlet and common blue butterflies. Here we are in a corner of Sampford Peverell's churchyard where the grasses have been growing up all year and the wildflowers have been in bloom. But now, right at the very end of the season, the grasses will be cut down again and we won't see them again till next spring. Of course, we do not know for sure where these butterflies came from, but we do know that the newly created meadow on the North Devon Link Road embankment is home to large populations of these species, and it is tempting to think that they may have come from here.
And finally, we have to mention the lively meetings of the Natural History Group, hosted by its leaders Graham and Christine, which are legendary for their frivolity, irreverence and good humour. The discovery in Somerset Records Office of a beautifully illustrated charter relating to Sampford Peverell raised a lot of interest, especially because we didn't know what it said. Dating back to 1633, it was written in late medieval Latin. But once translated, we found out that the purpose of this grand document was merely to allow the weekly market to be held on Fridays instead of Saturdays. Nevertheless, it became the inspiration for one of the interpretation boards, which also describes the centuries-old Sampford Fair. Up until the 1950s, the fair occupied the length of Lower Town for animal auctions, merchandising, food and drink, with activities spreading out into land beyond, as commemorated in the modern street name Fairfield. To commemorate Sampford Fair, the Society in 2008 organised a remarkable happening with a lot of help from all quarters of the community. A one-off revival of the fair set in the time of Merry England. The current picnic field was taken over for a host of activities. Costumes abounded as characters interpreted. Crafts and games were revived. Music, dance and mummers' plays, food and drink, auctions took place, stories were told, there were jugglers, all the fun of the fair. Again, many thanks to the Heritage Lottery people for their sponsorship. The Society's teams have combined with other village groups to lead, support or record for posterity many other village-wide events, such as the Fun Days and Jubilee celebrations. We also maintain the churchyard's wildlife area. In association with the Sustainable Villages group, we've helped to organise the annual Apple Fair. So, as we look back at the first 10 years of the Society's existence, how do we assess the effect it has had on village life? Has it fulfilled its founders' expectations? From this brief review of our activities, selected mainly because of the existence of a film or photographic record, it's obvious that a great deal of work has been done. A look at the website shows just how much we have brought into the public domain for future researchers. The Society's archives, publications and submissions are well recognised for their quality. Its members have fostered a spirit of cooperation within the village and have both assisted and been supported by other volunteer groups in turn. But most of all, a great deal of fun has been had along the way. So, onward to the next 10 years.